Hello and welcome to this broadcast of Running on Love with God. My name is Lori Michelle, and I was awakened to the voice of our Creator in April of 2009. He said, go get pen and paper, start writing this down, and I listened. And now, 9 years later, I live in Israel and I'm sharing his wisdom with you. I'm here in Israel and my friend Anna Marie is in Chicago. Hello, Anna Marie. And today we're going to go deeper into the topic of slavery. It is now Passover 2018, and we just celebrated a Seder on Friday night. I'm Jewish, and I live in Israel, and I went to Jerusalem, and we celebrated freedom. That's what Passover is really about. In tonight's program, I entitled, in honor of this holiday, if God desires us to be free, why does everyone choose slavery instead? And I posted this picture, which got over 1,300 people liking it, and it says, God gives freedom, but men enslave. Choose freedom, choose God. And people really like the message. And so that's what we're going deeper into the topic of. And I just want to start with a little discussion as to why God gave us the Torah and many rules, hundreds of rules. And people look at those rules as oppressive. But the reason that we need rules, and we discussed this last week about the golden rule not being enough, is a metaphor that I thought of today. And it's this. This is a remote control for my cable TV. And it's very complicated. I don't even know what half these buttons do, and I never even use them. But if this remote control is this complicated, can you just imagine what life in a body is like? It's quite complicated. It looks easy. It looks like life should just be natural and easy, but it's complicated. However, it gets easier when someone gives us instructions. So, for example, on this remote control, there's an on and off button. Well, that's easy. So we drill it down to one function at a time, and we learn as we go. Well, Hashem, God, created this and all that we see and all that's here, air, the earth, the sea, everything. And he knows how to use everything and how to live a life that's blessed, and he knows the pitfalls, he knows the dangers. And so that's why we have rules. The rules are not for him, and the rules are not meant to enslave us. They are to give us freedom, freedom to choose to use his rules and his guidelines to live a blessed life. I'll let you ask questions.
Okay, my first question is, can you expand a little bit more on the idea of slavery? Because when you say slavery, I think of biblical slavery, and then I think of slavery in America, but do you mean more than just that?
There's all forms of slavery, and what I said was very true, that God gives us freedom, and men either choose to be enslaved or choose slavery. Choose to enslave others, or they choose to be slaves to others. So let's start with one and then the other. We can see in this world that men are oppressing other men, or men and women. When I say men, I mean people, humans. Okay. And governments become very severe. There are dictatorships. They're very cruel. We see this all over the world. Korea, Iran had many protests. Now they espouse to be a government that's a theocracy, but it's really not. It's men and it's dictatorship, and it's the rule of an iron fist. Hashem has given us rules, and he does have metaphorically an iron fist because he's the judge at the end of the day and decides our fate. But he allows us pure freedom throughout the day, throughout our lives. Whereas men control. And why do they control, Anna Marie? They have egos. They want more. The more they control, the more they have for me. The quest for me. So that's the controlling part of the personality. You see this in marriages. Men control their wives. They control the money. They control what goes on in the bedroom. They control. Women can be controlling too. But because men are innately stronger physically, they use that strength to dominate women. Throughout the history of the world, we've seen this. And to this day, there is still, believe it or not, and we know, sex slaves around the world. There's human trafficking right now. And that's the most egregious and obvious form of slavery. But there's other sneaky forms of slavery that people choose. They choose to be slaves. And what are they slaves to? To their looks. What do I look like? Oh, I think I need some plastic surgery. I'm getting old. So they go and pay money so they can look younger because they're seeking the good opinion of everyone around them. Everyone around them is God. Their opinions of what they look like, how old do I look, am I attractive anymore? So that's another form of slavery, seeking the good opinion of others, seeking beauty, seeking things, seeking money, being subservient to creditors and spending too much money, and suddenly you're saddled with onerous debt, is another form of modern day slavery.
What's the difference between slavery and responsibility in your example of the debt? Because on the one hand, you have to earn money, you have to make a living. On the other hand, you don't want to cross that line and have that be all-consuming.
Right. You can also be poor and be a slave to materialism. You can be in poverty and be a slave. You could be rich and be a slave. You can have tons of money and be a slave to managing all that money. So your question is, where's the balance? Where is it good? Where does it become evil? Is that your question?
Yeah, well, how do you keep from exchanging one form of slavery for another? Like, for example, if you mentioned about being a slave to creditors and bill collectors.
Right.
So then when you get a job, then are you a slave to the job?
If you choose to be. We all make choices, and I'll give you an example. Let's talk about real examples rather than theory and hypotheticals. When I built my first house, I had a lot of money. We had a lot of cash. We were making a lot of money. And the realtor was showing us homes, and we gave her a budget of how much we wanted to spend at that time. I won't go into the details, but I will tell you that she told us, why are you looking in this price range when you could clearly, easily afford a house twice as much? And I said, but this is all the house I would ever want, all the house I would ever need. I don't need all that. And I want to breathe easy. I want to go on vacations. I don't want to be a slave to my house, to my mortgage. And I want to live below my means, where a lot of people are on this quest. And you have to also ask yourself, why? Why do I need a bigger house? Why do I need 6-car garage? Why do I need another Ferrari when I have one Ferrari? I'm being facetious, of course. I have a wagon. I don't even have a car anymore.
But you have a really nice wagon.
Oh, I bought the Lexus of wagons in Israel. My wheels kept popping off every month, and it was more cost effective to buy the Lexus of wagons and a 1-year guarantee that if my wheels pop off, he will give me a new wagon. So I'm making jokes because things don't have power over me. And that's where we have to learn balance and what is really our goal and what is the goal of money. It's for joy and it's for giving away. The more we're blessed, the more we're blessed to give. But people seem to forget that, especially in beautiful America. I didn't really even have it on my radar to be charitable and give to charity years ago when I had a ton of money. It didn't occur to me. But now, of course, years later, I had my awakening and it occurs to me, I have enough. And what people in Israel consider enough would shock you, would totally shock probably everyone in America. I had the most glorious Seder in Jerusalem on Friday night, a rabbi and his wife with 7 children who live in a 3-bedroom apartment. And they're turning one of those bedrooms into an office for the rabbi. So all 7 children will live in one very large room that they will put a divider, and 4 girls will sleep on one side in bunk beds and 3 boys on the other side. And they are the most joyous people. The children don't fight. It's not my toy, my things. They're not about things. It's an extreme case, but it was beautiful. So slavery to things, I need more, I need a bigger room, I need a bigger house, I need more, is making yourself a slave to things instead of being empowered by God.
In your intro, you wrote, while people celebrate the idea of freedom, they are inexplicably attracted to slavery. My question is freedom more difficult?
Absolutely, and it's a beautiful question because in the story of Passover, Moshe Rabbeinu went through a lot to get the children freed from bondage. And when they finally experienced miracle after miracle and they crossed the Red Sea, miracle after miracle, what was the first thing they did? Scream and cry, we want to go back to slavery. We want to go back to Egypt. We had 3 square meals a day. All we had to do, well, of course, we got whipped and we were beaten and we had to work, but we didn't starve to death. It wasn't so bad. So the idea of slavery, well, there's a lot of truth to that. Think about it. A lot of criminals repeat crimes and wind up going back to jail. And they find that living in jail is an easier and better way of life for them. They get their meals, they get to work out, they have TV, they don't have to think about how to earn a living. It's bizarre, I know, but freedom comes with responsibility.
So for a lot of people, it is easier to be enslaved.
Yes, they know what they're getting, they know what they're obligated to, they show up, they get their meals, they have their rent paid for, or their houses paid for. It's there's a certain amount of exoneration. They don't have to think about anything. God gives us freedom, and with freedom you have to choose, so you constantly have to be thinking.
Okay. You mentioned that slavery still exists in the world. What can enslaved people do to break free?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer, and he just said it's about to happen.
Okay.
This is about to happen. These are, and I sound a little bit like a broken record, and that makes me old because records don't exist anymore. But it's repetitive. But these are the end of days right now. And people are guessing, oh, I think these are the end of days. This looks like prophecy unfolding, and it is. People will be freed, and they will need to choose. And see, that's the danger right now, is that you're being tested and you're being judged. This is a time of judgment right now. And we see it all, the signs all over the world. We see the hashtag Me Too and people being called out everywhere. No one can seem to get away with anything anymore. And that's part of the preview of where we're heading. We're answerable to every single action. And so the people who are enslaving others and people who feel enslaved are going to have a wake-up call. And they're going to have to face themselves in the mirror and understand that it's Hashem, God's world. It's not our world. He gave us everything, but we are beholden to a creator, and he's real. So the answer to your question is, how can people become free and break the bondage? They need to choose God over people. Fearlessly. You need to be fearless.
Is hoarding a form of slavery? I mean, that you're a slave to your things that you can't let go of?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Okay.
The choice of things over your spirit and the invisible side of you is a form of slavery. Everything that we have can be very useful and beautiful. These eyeglasses are very useful, but when they've seen their useful day, I'm not going to hoard them. I'm going to toss them, recycle them, or give them away.
Yeah, donate them.
Donate them. But if they're broken, well, they're plastic, so they're going to be disposed of, hopefully properly, and not wind up in some trash dump somewhere. But we need to balance. We need to enjoy things, items, but not worship them.
Okay, so you said you wanted to use actual real-life examples. So here's a problem that I have.
Okay.
Clothes. I'm old enough that I've seen fashions come and go and then come back again. And so a lot of time I just hang on to my clothes because I think, well, this will come back again. And it's actually happened that I've worn something that I hadn't worn in 20 years and then it comes back and I wear it again. Is that an enslavery thing or is that a practical thing?
It sounds practical, really. If you don't mind wearing something that's 20 years old and it looks well and it's not pilled and ugly looking and you're just wearing it because you have a problem spending money on new things, that can be a form of slavery. When you're hoarding things or you're wearing things that are so ragged and old when you really need something new. You shouldn't be afraid to spend money. So there are a lot of people who hoard money and things because of fear, and fear is the work of evil, Yetzer hara. Oh, I won't have enough. There are people who have millions of dollars and they're afraid to spend. There truly are people who are afraid of not having enough. And then there are people who let go of everything and know that it's Hashem who provides to us. But there also could be on the other side of evil. There are people who choose to be homeless, thinking that that's something of an honor, to be poor, something holy. There's holiness in poverty, and I'm here to tell you, it ain't true. I would much rather be rich, but I will not sell out my soul, and I will not choose things over God. But I would much rather be rich than poor, because with means and money, I can solve a lot of problems for a lot of people. I can help in a monetary sense. I can help.
And yet you said that there's still enslavement possible in poverty. So what would you be enslaved to?
Other people. I see that there are people on the streets that are begging, and they're in a form of bondage. They're not living well. They look scared. So there's a form of poverty. I'm technically, the IRS and creditors have deemed me poor. I am poor. I am technically
right.
on paper, poor. But you would look at me, I dress well, I look well, my hair is nice, I take care of myself. I have just enough to eat well and be clothed properly, and no one would ever call me a pauper. But
Right.
being poor is a state of mind. I don't feel I'm poor, but technically, monetarily, I am a poor person in an economic sense. But in a spiritual sense, I am undoubtedly the wealthiest woman in the universe. I really am. I really have everything. And people sense that. And people come after me for money. I'm like, I don't have money. I'll give you a hug. I'll give you a smile. But I'm not wealthy in that way.
Are there things you can do to keep yourself from crossing that line? Like, say, for example, so you're working hard, you're making a lot of money, you're saving money so that you can protect your future. How do you know when you've gone too far? What are the kinds of questions to ask?
You're asking fantastic questions, because these are questions that everybody needs to start asking themselves. And so the question is, let's say suddenly I'm publishing a book and I'm a multimillionaire. Oh, thank you, Hashem. I hope so. So I would probably take my first vacation in many years, and I would take care of myself. I have no problem being nice to myself. But how nice? And who's it for? Right?
Right.
You have to ask these questions. Okay, wow, I don't need my wagon anymore. I could go get a car. Well, okay, I have many millions. What kind of car should I get? Oh, well, I could probably afford 10 Ferraris. What do I even need one Ferrari for?
Because they're fast.
Well, I don't need a fast car. It's not my thing. But maybe if I had a car fetish, maybe I would get one Ferrari. But do I need a Ferrari and a Lamborghini? You know, who am I impressing? Am I going to buy the Ferrari and take a picture of it and post it on social media so everybody can applaud? I'm not looking for applause. I'm not looking for praise, and I'm not looking to impress anyone. Yet, I appreciate material items, and I would get a car, maybe a nice car. I like toys, so I would get something with navigation and definitely air conditioning. I have to have air conditioning. Well, they all have air conditioning, but climate control. But what do I really need? These are the questions that you really need to ask. And so I play with that. I play with that idea, and I speak to Hashem all the time, and I always say to him, oh, please, Hashem, let me sell millions of books. Make me a billionaire. And why? Why do I want to be a billionaire? Because I want to give it all away, but not all of it. I'm not stupid, and I'm not crazy. I would make sure I'm taken care of. I would have a nice home again. I'd own my own home again, and I'd have a car. But beyond that, what do I really need? So I've often thought about it. I read that Oprah Winfrey has a mansion that I think is like $140 million. And I don't think that anybody should decide for Oprah Winfrey what she should spend her money on. She earned it. But when I think about it, what kind of house do I need for that kind of money when there are children in Africa who can't find money for shoes or food? Could I get along in $1 million home? I don't have that now, but would a $2 million home overlooking a beautiful view of the Sea of Galilee and the Golan be enough for me for the rest of my life? And maybe I would give 138 million to charity, but not just to charity, but to programs to teach people who don't have shoes how to get along and live their lives and educate them of how to get shoes on their own. You know, the old proverb, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he eats for a lifetime. So that should be my worst problem in the world, that I have so much money that I have to set up a situation room of really smart people to decide how I can give all that money away. But not just give it away, but with a program so that it does real good in this world.
So if you feel yourself getting like really way too attached to something, the two questions that you just said you should ask are why and who is it for?
Right. And what's the goal? What do you need? What do you want? Do you want a $140 million mansion? Do you need a $140 million mansion? If you're rich and successful and you're entertaining world leaders every day of the week, well, maybe you do need a $140 million mansion because it's a hotel, you know?
Right.
The needs of the rich and famous, I can understand, are much more, they're in much greater need of protection, of security. There's a lot, when the more you have, the more you tend to need to sustain it. But are they asking those questions? Like the actors and actresses who got the swag bags at the Oscars, they valued, I believe, $200,000 for a goodie bag. I used to give my kids goodie bags at their birthday parties, and they were, you know, $5 or something like that. I'm not saying that the actors and actresses should get a $5 goodie bag, but that would be a really wonderful statement, wouldn't it? If they got a little bag of candy instead and gave the $200,000 to a program that fed and clothed needy people in remote parts of the world.
Well, now this is off topic, but I thought the point of the goodie bags was that the people who donated the things for the bags wanted the celebrities to wear them or use them or go to the resorts to get free advertising. I thought it was a commercial thing.
This whole business, and I came from the world of marketing and advertising. That was my business. It's repugnant and disgusting. Everything's about eyes and money. And I say it's disgusting. It wasn't disgusting back in the day when I made a living at it. But when I see how deplorable people live now in this world, there's no sense of morality anymore in this world. It's disgusting, frankly.
Okay, you want to wrap up?
Yeah, do you have a final question or?
So just sum up, to keep yourselves from being enslaved, you should be aware.
Ask questions, but the whole purpose of this program, every week, every day of my life, is to share with you that God is real. He speaks to me in plain, everyday English, but he speaks to everyone. The difference is you hear him as Anna Marie or whoever you are in your own language, in your own voice. But he speaks to you, and you need to learn how to discern and choose him over people and things, because he gives us freedom. And it looks like the religious people are crazy and that the secular people are the ones who are the wise ones. But it's not so. He created us. It's like an automobile. We are truly a weapon, right? A car is a beautiful thing, an item, but it can be for good. It can drive you to go get your groceries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drive you on vacation, or in the hands of a terrorist, it can be turned into a death weapon that kills and maims innocent people. Do you see? Do you see why we need him? Do you see why we need his rules? This is truly a weapon. What's inside is very powerful. We are a spirit that is a microcosm of him, and he is all powerful, and he knows how powerful we are. And turn the wrong way, one wrong decision, and a car becomes a weapon. Social media becomes a weapon. But in the same breath, in another breath, it can be used for goodness and greatness if you choose God over evil. And freedom comes through God. God bless you. Go to lauriemichelle.net. There's lots of programs there. There'll be more. And I am going to publish this book. I promise. It's on its way. It's in the last rounds of revision. And I hope you'll purchase this book so that I can become successful and help you help yourselves. God bless you. May there be peace in our world, in our time. God bless you.